What's up, guys? Uh, Through my testing and use, I get a pretty good feel of what knives cut really well. Um, when I'm talking about cutting really well, I'm not talking about edge retention or anything like that. I'm talking about just purely cutting performance, how easily you can get through a material, how much or how little force it takes to get through the material, and really fatigue comes into that also. A knife that doesn't cut well is going to fatigue you a lot faster. So I was just sitting here thinking about it. If a person is like me, which I know many of you are from your comments, if you're into cutting performance in your knives and you just want performance, that's all you want. You don't want to be able to beat it through a tree and not have blade play or some crap like that. You're mostly worried about how well your knife cuts. I was thinking about that and thinking about, well, maybe some knife enthusiasts don't want $500 knives. Not everybody can or wants to do that. So I was thinking I would do a best budget cutter video. And I was picking out the knives and stuff, and I was just sitting here thinking, or looking at what I picked out, and I was thinking that none of them are really expensive. None of my super expensive knives cut all that well. Sure, the Spyderco cuts well, but I'm not sure it's any better than this Tenacious or this Paramilitary 2. So I didn't need to cut it up into a budget cutter and high-end cutter, because all the best cutters just seem to fall in between 150 and under, which is awesome to me. Somebody's just starting out in the knife world, or even has a good collection, and they're just looking to get high performance knives. All 5 of these are under 150. Some are well under 150, like this one, or one is. So that's pretty cool. I picked all 5 of these knives just based on cutting performance in my rope test. If it can get through rope with these, that means it can get through pretty much anything with these, because that stuff is some of the hardest material I've ever had to cut, period. And all 5 of these knives fared extremely well through it, and I guess I'll just go through and talk about what I like about it. First, the Griptilian. Wasn't really expecting this to be a great cutter. It's a small knife. I thought I was going to have to really bow up on it to get it to go through the rope. I had never really paid attention to the grind, although it never felt especially thin to me until I started cutting. This is definitely one of the top slicers that I have. It just melts right through the rope. It takes no force at all. At $80, $70, $80, this is a whole lot of performance in a small knife like this. Even the handle, this is the mini grip, by the way. It doesn't matter that the knife is small. It just seems to go through whatever you need it to go through, and it's really amazing how well it cuts. The grind is just great. It's honestly, only words you can describe it. It's just great. I actually got to meet Mel Pardue about 3 weeks ago, and I talked to him about this knife, and he designed this knife while his daughter was in the hospital. He needed to send a design to Benchmade, so he said he designed it in about 15 minutes, and he took, at that time, all the most desirable traits of a tactical knife and put them all on this one knife, and he came up with a Griptilian. So that's pretty cool, and it was neat to hear him talk about how he designed it. But really good cutter in about the $80 range. Next, I have the Tenacious, which is kind of like, I know it's a really popular knife, but it's popular because it's cheap and it's well built. Not a lot of people talk about its cutting performance. It cuts like a demon. All of these knives cut like a demon, so it's going to be hard to come up with new things to say about each one of them, but this thing just cuts really well. It's a full flat grind, but at the edge it's thinner than most of Spyderco's full flat grinds, so it does cut extremely well. The 8CR13 MOV steel can take a fairly shallow edge and hold it. I mean, it's actually better than most people think. So this is definitely a great cutter, and it's most definitely a great cutter at its price point. I mean, 30 bucks and you're getting that much performance. I would feel comfortable saying everybody needs a Tenacious, just based on that fact alone. Next is the Spyderco Stretch, which is arguably the best cutter out of all of these. It has an extremely thin grind. It is a full flat grind, but it's just extremely thin to start out with. So down at the cutting edge, it's probably the thinnest out of all three of these knives, and it just seems to cut like crazy. Especially if you lay the edge back like I have here, it just glides through the material with no effort at all. These FRN knives are fairly flimsy, and I figured I would have a problem bowing up on it, wearing the lock or the pivot or something, but honestly, it just glid right through the rope so easily that I had to use pretty much no force, and that's a testament to how well it cuts. Probably the best cutter out of all 5 of these knives, but not by much. I mean, it's not outshined. It doesn't outshine the rest of them by too much. Paramilitary 2, excellent knife. Still falls under the $150 range. Still a really good cutter, but honestly probably the least cutting performance out of all 5 of these. I know that's going to be weird to some people, but it is fairly thick at the end of the grind where the edge is, and it is fully flat ground, so it does cut well. Cuts a lot better than most knives, but out of all 5 of these, it's probably the least in terms of cutting performance. But still needs to be mentioned because it does pack a lot of performance in its price range. You got a nice belly, a nice kind of thin grind, but it does cut very well. Probably the most popular out of all 5 of these. Next is a Benchmade 710, which I was going to do this video earlier. I just got this knife Friday, tested it yesterday, and I'm glad I tested it before I made this video because this thing is one of the best cutters I've used. Obviously, if it's sitting here, did not expect it to be like that. I mean, this knife has kind of a thick blade, but it does taper down to a really thin cutting edge, and the recurve allows it to really bite into material. You have a nice long blade so you can really get into things, and it doesn't look like it, but the blade is ground really thin, and it's D2, so it can hold that thin grind without much deformation, so it makes it a really good cutter. Even at the tip, it doesn't get all that thick, so it maintains its good performance all the way out to the point, which is really cool. I'm glad I tested this knife. It's now one of my favorites. As you know, I like performance. All the other things are cool, lock strength and all that. That's cool to me, but it's not the main thing I look out for. I look for cutting performance. So if I had to rank these down the line, I would say first, this is a tough one. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Honestly, these two are really similar in blade thickness and grind. These could probably tie. It's hard to say, but this is definitely the best, and this is definitely the worst. But keep in mind, all of these are super high performers. I may have to amend this video or do another one in the future after I've tested some other knives. Like, I'm guessing this is going to be a really good performer because it's a full flat ground blade with a fairly thin blade stock to begin with. I'm guessing this is going to be a really good performer, which is the Spyderco Native 5. Same deal, just a really thin grind. So, of course, I'm going to have to amend this video down the road as I test more and more knives. But right now, these 5 knives right here, 150 and under, all excellent performers. I would recommend each one of them if you're looking for cutting performance. So anyway, I hope this video wasn't super jumbled together. I don't have an outline or anything, so I was just kind of talking. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.